Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this breakout session. I'm Nino. I'm from Georgia, which is a country far, far away from here. I'm from Tbilisi, and I'm the founder of the Google Developer Group and Women Tech Makers communities in Tbilisi. We founded our GDG in 2012, early 2012. So it's been quite a ride, and it's a pleasure to be here because what we do as community organizers is that we get extremely tired of doing events, but the next morning we start planning the new event. It happens to me every DevFest when I'm like, no, I need to sleep. These 2 hours won't help. But then I do it all over again the next year. And the main idea why we do it, because we get so much reward of why we do community work. But as I said, sometimes it might be feeling like we're draining out of ourselves, we're draining out of resources. So that's why my topic today is about building partnerships specifically with companies and with international organizations. And just by sharing my experience and our experience as a community for several years, but also my experiences running different nonprofit projects, I hope that it will give you some hints on how to secure partnerships in your own communities. Of course, I don't know all the cities and countries where you're coming from and all the resources available, but the tips are tips and they are relevant everywhere. Who knows this? Liverpool, yes. So the reason why I'm talking about partnerships today is that, especially with the community, and in general in life or any kind of business or operations we want to do, you should never walk alone. Because it is being said by wise people that if you want to go far, you should go by someone else, with someone else. And with the communities, we do want to be sustainable, we do want to grow, we do want to be still on the map of GDG chapters or others for years to come. So that is why let's not walk alone. And that is why I'm starting my slides of tips about why are partnerships important. Why should we care about them in the first place? Or maybe we just want to be just by ourselves with our own little group of 3 co-organizers and just be struggling with whatever we are doing. So one of the things that happens to community organizers is that sometimes we just want to take it all as a credit. And it is okay to share the credit with others. I think that's one of the mistakes why people don't start partnerships, because they're afraid to lose a name, they're afraid to have 10 other logos on the banner because one logo just looks so much prettier and so much nicer. But, you know, there are some trade-offs that you need to make, and it's okay, because especially when you're a community, you need partnerships. And as I will be talking later, maybe this 10 more logos on your banner will actually give you much more than take away from you. So in general, why partnerships are important? First of all, it gives us more resources. Quite logical. It helps us to have more resources to do more. Say, let's do more events and not only one big event per year or one big dev fest, but maybe also do some code labs, study jams for students. So to do more of the type, to do better in quality. So, you know, have much more content, have more speakers who can travel and come and talk at your events. Maybe have better food options, because sometimes food is very important for people who are at Hackathon, for instance. And then one of the things is there's this phrase that instead of working harder, work smarter. I think building partnerships is one of this kind of like experience that when you build partnership, you try to work smarter. So you try to do whatever you're good at the most and let others do whatever they are good at the most. And in this case, maybe you're not so drained before the morning of the event. Maybe you're able to accomplish more and accomplish better. Another thing is that when you have partners, you kind of share the ownership. which is great because ownership comes with responsibility, it comes with pride. So when you have more people taking responsibility of success, they're also taking responsibility of failure as well. So the chances are you'll succeed than fail because more people will be striving to have the better spirit, to have better consistency in whatever you're doing, and maybe to have better courage to fail together. And the last key thing of why partnership is that in our case as well, what I have witnessed is that it gives you much larger network. If you partner especially with other tech communities in your city or in your country, if you partner with other companies, it gives you much larger reach. And we as a community builders, our main and ultimate goal of why we're doing things is that we want to reach more people, we want to grow, we want to have to do good deeds for more people. So I guess we're kind of like agreeing of why partnerships are important. Are we agreeing? Yes, yes, yeah. So some examples from our community and recent examples, which I will be sharing some more practical tips, is that, for instance, Women Tech Makers is one of our core initiatives, and we try to empower more women and more girls to join tech world because we feel that this is a better place, this is the place for high income, this is a better place for economic empowerment, and this is where what women need, but also tech needs women in diversity as well. So as we speak about these topics, kind of like we need to understand that there are other organizations like, for instance, United Nations, who have goals and aspirations to have gender equality, to have more economic empowerment. So the values of, for instance, Women Tech Makers communities quite coincided with the values and goals of United Nations in my current location in Georgia, for instance, which led us to 3-4 initiatives in the last year, which was completely unintended and unplanned and unimaginable even, and they were extremely remarkable. We started by having a joint Google design sprint at one of our dev fests, and their support, and the topic we were doing was about workplace harassment and just making sure that the environment is safe and friendly for everyone, and then we were trying to find with some tech solutions of how to solve it. And the partnership was quite minimal with UN Women in Georgia. Right afterwards, we started putting together a proposal with local nonprofit organizations, and currently Women Tech Makers community in Georgia is organizing a project with more than 100 ladies around the country to teach them how to code. And with only Women Tech Makers being a community, we would not have afforded to train 100 people over the course of 1 year to provide internships, to provide stipends, to help them connect with the mentors. It would just be impossible. Another initiative we came up with was to do like TED-style talks about women and gender equality and women tech makers, and it also ended up like a really, really big event with more than 300 people, with ambassadors and was like presidents, and so it was quite big, and being like a small community, it was something very unusual and extraordinary. So I know that United Nations operates across the globe, so maybe this is some little takeaway message for you to perhaps reach out to them, because whether it's women's support or whether it's empowering tech in general for social good, doing a hackathon for social good might be something that they would be interested, or some other international organizations would be interested. What I mentioned already was to partner with nonprofits, because they might be in the same boat, and they might have some institutional capacity to carry out projects, to do fundraising, to receive funds and to distribute them. So perhaps that is a good idea. Another that we have found to be useful in Georgia was to partner with banks, because they have money, but also apart from having money, for instance, a really good direction today, which is quite common, is fintech. And they're interesting to bring more technologies into financial sector. So with that mindset, last DevFest, we partnered with one of the banks in Georgia, Bank of Georgia, which is now starting the new fintech direction. So we did code labs about fintech, we brought speakers about fintech thanks to their support, and they were basically one of the key sponsors of the whole DevFest. Well, moreover, right after the DevFest, next morning when we were super tired, we got a call saying we want to do it again next year. So they are still, again, our sponsor, and we want to do more with the fintech, but also have other, we just found that this is nice to have some topics that people are interested. So maybe, except of fintech, you could have something about agricultural tech or something about, medical tech. And all the tools that we're talking about, all the Google APIs are just tools. It can be used with different topics. So perhaps linking them with sectors and sectoral partners is a way to go, in a way to do more. Another thing we have come to utilize is government support. In Georgia specifically, there is an agency called Georgia's Innovation and Technology Agencies that support different projects and youth initiatives. So we kind of saw that they have some small grants to run an event or to bring a sponsor. So we just approached them and said, bringing a speaker would be great for the local community, would be great to improve the tech community in our country, and you as a government should be interested to support. So they agreed, and we have had several initiatives to do so, including doing some camps for kids to teach them how to code. And one more thing I mentioned here, they have some free spaces that we can use. So it's not only about money, and I'll go right after the slides about resources. It's not only about money. Sometimes it's just venues that you need, and it comes free, so you're saving much money in that way. And lastly, it's partnering with other communities. In Georgia, when we started in 2012, we didn't have really a luxury to have any other tech community. We were the only tech community. So it was hard for us to approach other communities. And it was kind of like when we were starting to set words like hackathon or code lab into the dictionary of Georgian language. Now everyone kind of takes it for granted, but we're so happy that now there are so many more communities, starting by our members or by others, by university students, by the new generations to come in the tech world. So for instance, one of the communities we partner with is DroidUp, that are meetups of Android. So we do the meetups together and we discuss things together, and I think that's kind of like interesting approach, because sometimes you cannot really organize event every month. You don't have a resource to organize it. So to let others do it and you partner, gives them, some content bundles from Google might be helpful for both parties, because they need content, they need some affiliation to Google, and you need them to organize it for you. So here are the fake pictures. This is our DevFest last year. We had 4 parallel sessions and around 800 registered attendees. I think around 600 eventually came. We did it for free. We usually do it for free. This is Women Tech Makers Camp last year, where we did the girls coding camp. This is like a tradition that we kind of realize that there is a gap, especially in the regions of Georgia, that girls are not really aware of the job opportunities or of what the IT sector means in general. So we bring them for 3 days of hands-on camp where they meet inspiring women, but also code a bit. Of course, using Scratch or Code.org, or just do some things on Code Academy. But many of the girls who have attended our previous camps have actually applied for universities into computer engineering degree. So, and one of them, actually, who was attending this one, went to an MIT summer school. So that was a pretty cool thing. And now she's still a high school student, Mariam Lomtadze, and now I'm actually recruiting her every time I do a camp. She comes and mentors other girls of the same age. And I hope that now she's in applications for the university. So let's hope that she'll go to MIT or wherever she wants to go. This is me, and this is our project that I mentioned with United Nations, where we train more than 100 women from 5 regions of Georgia. Every weekend we do trainings in 11 rooms at the same time in 7 cities. And it is completely, unimaginable to do it as just only women tech makers, as only myself or my friends. But we do here with the partnerships, with an organization, with UN. This is our Tech for Equality event that we did for the International Women's Day This is Luisa Vinton, which is representative of UN in Georgia, and it was a really big public event. So we had a lot of exposure and TV, and everyone was talking about women tech makers, and we had a lot of stickers to give it to diplomats. But also, it was actually one of my favorite events because the room was full. We had inspiring TED Talk style event, and we had a astronaut, Georgian women who are really good in, PhDs in computer science, but also, head of astronomy, observatory in Georgia. So it was like mind-blowing speakers, and if you could look from stage when I was introducing them, I could see like a high school kids sitting next to ambassadors and sitting next to like big business people. So I was like, this is a great place to bring all of them together because they can actually see what their needs are in all chapters. So this all sounds great, but what I want to tell you, except of just telling how great we were last year, which just happened, unexpectedly, I wanted to give you some tips of how to get started because it's kind of like, okay, it's great, but how do we do it? So here I'm trying to sketch out some of the steps you need to take. So first is to identify partners, assess risks and rewards, map resources, agree, and so on and so forth. So I'll go into details for each step just to share some of the ideas. So first of all, I think the most important thing that we do, and I do, is that, we know what kind of things we're interested in, whether it's tech or women empowerment or a specific tool that is out. So it's good to map out who might be potential partners, whether organizations, universities, communities, and to explore the range of options available. So there might be, for instance, different banks, but then which one of them comes closer to your values, which one of them comes closer to the topics that you're interested in. And then, it's up to you. Sometimes you have the luxury of selecting them if you want to approach them the first correspondence. And what you need to remember in this is that no partner is perfect, including yourself. And there will be some hardships and communication in not responding to the emails, in maybe misunderstanding of what you said or what you expected from them to do or what they expected from you. But it is okay. Having partnerships and building partnerships is a live process. And then, you can make it better the next time. It's a good learning process for either of the sides. Another step, the second step, is to understand what could be risks or rewards for these partnerships. Sometimes people forget that you might have some risks, and not every partnership can bring you great success. And some of the common risks, could be impact to reputation. Maybe this organization or company is not associated with something that you want to be associated with. Like, for instance, we had this example of we had a Women Tech Makers event, and we had a company that was providing free drinks. And this company had some really bad campaign about energy drink that was not supposed to be for girls. And they came to support a Women Tech Makers event. So it kind of clicked later on after the event for us. We tried to, explain that, they made a mistake and they wanted to make up and are supportive, and people who work there are nice. But it's kind of like a risk you might be taking, and it's good to know about them in advance. Another thing is, when you have 10 people doing things, you might lose autonomy of making decisions, of deciding the agenda, of deciding on the speakers, deciding the venue or the design or whatever. But you need to understand of how you want to manage those risks if they come. Conflict of interest, drain of resources is that, not all partnerships will come through. So if you understand that this communication, this negotiation is just a drain of resource, just quit doing it, but it will happen. You might have to talk to 10 partners to get one partner, or maybe 20 partners, but it's kind of a risk we need to take for a better reward. And then when it comes to implementation, there might be some challenges for that. In general, we talked about how great and wonderful the the rewards are, so I won't take much time of this. And then the third step is to map resources to understand that the partners you identified, what kind of things they can contribute. Sometimes it's better to do like a small workshop, brainstorming session with your team members, or maybe even together with the partners. That's what we did, for instance, with the bank and with UN, when we sat down and said, what resources do we need? Whether it's human, financial, physical, it's accommodation, speakers, whatever it is, and then who can contribute with what, which, and how. And, you know, just list of a lot of different things. Volunteers sometimes are a really, really important resource, and we kind of like underestimate those resources that we need during DevFest or big events. So maybe universities could be a good partner to bring you some volunteers. Yeah, so a lot of mapping of resource, whether it's accommodation or people or relationships. And then thirdly, you agree on the partnership and how you want to go. Sometimes it's formal, sometimes it's informal, and you need to kind of follow the agreement. So agreement is not the last step, because what comes next is you need to actually do, and then you need to grow. So I'll stop here for a second, because sometimes we're so eager on getting the partnerships, we might think that's the final goal. The final goal is to have a great project, great event. The final goal is to serve more people, to do something great. So final goal is not having a partner. So make sure you go to the final goal with the pride, with the great success. You don't kind of like lose your attention because like, oh, we had partners, now let's go and like drink. Well, you can do that too, but then go back to work and make sure that you implement it well. And then growing, I mean that plan ahead. Like I mentioned, the DevFest, right after the DevFest, we agreed on the next DevFest plans with the same sponsor. Plan ahead in terms of scouting for the resources, because maybe they don't have resources available today, but they might have if you approach it 1 year ahead. And then what's important is that to tell your story of how these partnerships worked. And today we heard a lot of examples of stories. But telling story of partnership can bring you more partnerships because they might want to also join you. And this happened to us as well because we had multiple similar partners in a row. So that was it. Thank you and good luck in scouting your partners.